Okay, while we're waiting, how many of you got smartphones?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So everybody's got a smartphone.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
basically you've all got the capability in your hands then to make a film.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Good, good. Well, apart from Shirley, I'm afraid hers. We've already had that discussion. Right. Well, my next question was going to be how many of you have got iPhones?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, about half. So I presume the other half have got Android phones.
Yeah.
Well, Samsung, which I assume is an
Android indeed, yeah. Apart from Shirley, who has a Microsoft
Yeah.
phone.
Got a Samsung myself. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Most of the things I'm going to talk about, some of the apps are basically firmly in either the Apple or the Android camps. Unfortunately, things like Microsoft phones have gone out of well, they never really did get a proper store created. So unfortunately, there aren't any apps particularly for that. So do you want me to make a start, Shirley?
Yes, please. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hi everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. As I say, I think this might be a bit of the blind leading the blind. I might even defer at some points, if he doesn't mind, to David, because he's the creative genius, whereas I'm maybe the techie guy. So see the look of panic on his face. Oh look, he's gone. There we are. Camera off. So what I wanted to do was just to talk about a little bit about filming principles. And again, feel free, anybody's jumping. Steve as well. You can talk about it from actually being in front of the cameras in terms of what directors are looking for in terms of actors and things. Yeah. But my talk was mainly going to be on what's available to you on your phones, and also some of the other general principles you need to be aware of. And this all came about because of a conversation I had with Shirley, where she was saying, I keep doing films, but nobody can see them. I don't know how to upload them and things. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well, in general terms, just so that you've got an appreciation of the best way of transmitting these things, because it is important you don't try and send them by text message, for argument's sake, because otherwise that's going to cost you a fortune and use all your data up. So it's mainly going to be about filming today, but some of these principles are also about photography as well, because they are obviously very closely aligned in that respect. Come on, you are going to work. Excellent. But the main thing that you should be aware of course, is that none of this is going to be any good unless you've got a story. You've got a principle of what is the message you're trying to get across. What's the emotion you're trying to get across? What do you want people to understand? Once you've got that basic story in your minds, then a very good way of trying to crystallize it is to do what they call storyboarding. And I've just taken a snapshot of, for some of you that got Macs will recognize this. This is just a snapshot from iMovie on the Apple Mac. But it just shows the principles of what you can do in terms of storyboarding. And it hasn't got to be great pictures. It's more about the principles of saying, well, if you look at that slide, the first 3 slots are photographs of or images of a person. Then it's going to a group shot, and then a medium shot, and then an action shot. And you can see quickly how it's building the story. So it's basically saying introducing 3 people that are part of a group, and then doing a medium shot, and then doing some action. And if you were to use iMovie, then this is a very quick and easy way of being able to create a trailer. And if we have time, I might show you one that we did for what's it called?
Bunch of Amateurs.
That's the one, thank you. You read my mind. The one we did for a bunch of amateurs, which was put together using those sort of basic principles. So I'm sure you've all heard about storyboarding in the past. And but I say they haven't got to be pretty pictures; they've just got to be principles. What are you trying to get from that? Let's talk a little about equipment at the moment. So we've already started. We said how many people have you got phones? So most of you got Apple phones or Android phones. I think people, David, for argument's sake, you've probably, I think you saw you with a tripod and a camera, so you may well actually be doing videoing using what people you traditionally have saw as stills camera, SLR cameras. That's the one, yeah, well done. And oh no, or is it? Is that iPhone on the tripod?
I have an iPhone on mine.
Okay, sorry, I just saw the tripod.
I've got an iPad tripod and an iPhone tripod.
Okay, excellent, excellent. But I can thoroughly recommend a tripod as being one of the necessary things to do, unless you're particularly going for an action shot where you want shaking images to be part of what it is you're trying to achieve. And then, of course, you've got the old traditional video cameras, and they still do have a place. So if you're anything like me, how many of you got what I would call the old-fashioned video cameras that were just dedicated as video cameras? Yeah.
Yeah, I got one of those.
Okay, yeah, quite a few. Okay, so again, they come in different sorts. You can get if you're going back into the good old bad old days like mine. You've got tape that can be either 8mm or mini DV, digital, or even analog before that, or more up to date now, where they actually still video them straight to a memory chip or a hard drive in some video cameras as well. And the quality of them obviously will depend on the age. Again, where this journey started was Shirley asked me to say, have you got any recommendations for a good video camera for doing bits and pieces? And this is where the whole conversation started. And what surprised me when I started looking at it was that if you were to go on somewhere like Amazon, for argument's sake, in the past, if you typed in video camera, you would have seen some of the big names in there like Canon, Panasonic, JVC, all those ones. Now, if you were to go onto Amazon and type in video camera, I couldn't find a named brand amongst them. And that's because they've become so overtaken by Apple and Android and those other handheld devices. Unless you go to the right at the top end of the market, in which case then obviously you do have Canon and that will achieve that for you. So, but cameras can do it, but my recommendation is always try and record in the highest quality you can, because you can always downgrade the picture, but it's very difficult to upgrade the picture. So the typical television screens these days are 1080p, or what's sometimes known as HD. But again, some of you, if you're a bit more techie like myself, may even have a 4K television. And all a 4K television is 4 times HD. So instead of having, so you've got four times the amount of pixels in a 4K television than you do in an HD television. So obviously, if you think about it, if you were to record something in HD, you've got to stretch that picture up to 4 times its size in order to fill the screen. And when you stretch those pixels, that's when you start getting artifacts and blurriness as it tries to do that. So if you are trying to future-proof your things, then I would recommend you try and look for a 4K camera. That's not to say that iPhones and Androids can't. They themselves can already video in 4K. So the only thing I would just say though with 4K, with four times the picture quality comes almost 4 times the amount of storage space you need. So if you think about your phones and things, just think about how much space you've got on your phones, because it could easily run out of space. So think about your project and what you're going to be doing, and you might have to adjust the resolution accordingly. Other equipment you might want to consider and think about is things like audio, because I don't know if you're like me, but where you videoed shows in the past, picture quality has normally been pretty good when you've been videoing stage shows, but it's always the sound that lets it down. And that's because sound, to get high quality sound is very difficult in terms of getting mics in the right place. And clearly when we're doing amateur productions in a big hall, a big space, you often get the echo and things, which does pull down the quality of the images. There are some things you can do about that. For microphones, you can get ones which they call rifle type mics, which will basically try and pull all the information from directly in front of them, which will allow them to zero in on where the sound's coming from and ignore the ambient sound around it, so you get a better clean picture. But the other things you might want to think about with audio is the type of device and how it's going to attach to your camera or device. So you can have the microphone that's built onto it. If you think about the microphone on your phone, it's got a microphone on there for obvious reasons, so you to do calls and things. But actually, it's a reasonably good mic, but it is at the end of the day a very small mic that's inside a device. And if you get any distance away from your audience, then you'll quickly see the degradation in quality. You could have what I call a tethered mic, which is basically a microphone which plugs into your phone, which means you can get closer to your subject. And what's coming up more on the market is remote mics, where those mics can be Bluetooth mics. So if you were to look on Amazon again now, you can get clip-on mics which are Bluetooth enabled, and Bluetooth will allow you to transmit an audio signal up to approximately 25 meters, so a reasonable distance. So for argument's sake, if you were interviewing somebody and you wanted to get good quality sound, but you couldn't get too close to them, then you could give them a clip-on mic with a Bluetooth connection to your device so that you could pick up the information directly into it. And I'll show you how you can how you configure that in some of the apps that we use. So that's sort of the general principles of equipment, but there are, as I say, other things. We've already mentioned tripods, which are a bonus. Lighting is a good one. Again, a bit like any photography, it's how you light a subject is the quality of the image you'll get. If it's a dark room, then you'll either get a grainy picture or it'll be too dark for the people to be able to see. But you want to be able to control that. In the good old days, some of the old video lights, like I used to have, were halogen bulbs with a big battery strapped to the back of it. But they were fairly blunt instruments. They were either on or off. Nowadays, with the advent of LEDs, you can get very bright LEDs, and that object you can see in the center of the slide is an LED lamplight, which not only means that you can turn on all or part of that light, but you can also change the color temperature of those lights, which means that, and I'll talk about color temperature in a minute, but effectively, that means that you can actually adjust the lighting. If you want, for argument's sake, a warm, cozy candlelit type effect, then you would adjust the LED lights to give you more of a yellow light. If you wanted the moonlight effect, then you would move it to a blue light and so on. And because they're LEDs, you've got that full control. So they're not particularly cheap. They're about £50, but they are extremely versatile and gives you a lot of control with what you can do with them.
Paul, can I just say as well,
Yeah.
That's for doing big shots, but if you're just doing close-up stuff at screens and whatever, you can have these kind of lights as well.
Indeed.
Much cheaper. They're about 20 quid or something.
Yeah.
Sort of give you that.
In fact, I have one of those surrounding my camera at the moment. Yeah.
At
So
my guitar,
sorry.
At my guitar, they have some kind of equipment stuff doing the filmings. They got tripods, and also they got microphones connected to the camera, something like that.
Excellent, good. So in the middle there, you can see a typical mic. That's what I would call a tethered mic, because it's got a jack cable. Not so useful on mobile devices, because most phones these days don't have jack inputs on them for you to be able to connect them in. But certainly if you've got an SLR camera, they tend to be able to accept those type of inputs, or indeed the old video cameras. One you may or may not have seen. Does everybody know what a gimbal is or what it's for?
Oh, is that where we're using it for the video recording, using your mobile phone, right?
Yes, you can do. In fact, the image there has a mobile phone on it. Effectively, it's like a super image stabilizer. So you would hold the grip, and that when you move it around, effectively, it would compensate for the movement of your arm. So if you've seen some television programs where somebody's running and the picture looks smooth as they're running, but they're running, the image is still on them, that's because they're using a gimbal, which uses various gyroscopes inside it to compensate for the movement that's taking place. And these handheld gimbals are extremely useful if you want to get those sort of type of images. Having said that, there are some more modern cameras that have a lot of what they call image stabilization built into them. So the iPhone, the newest iPhones, has image stabilization built into them, which compensates for smaller movements. And you can also get things like GoPros. So if you think of action cameras, GoPros that people use for skiing and things, a lot of those these days have image stabilization in them, which do a pretty good job. And again, if we have a bit of time, I might show you some shots that have been taken with the GoPro that's been taken with the image stabilization turned on. Okay, I thought I'd try and do a demo now if I could, because one of the things I would recommend is this app, which is available for both Android and iPhone. It's called Filmic. It is a slight cost, but I believe it's, from memory, it's only about £5 or £10 in the Apple Store. But what this does is it allows you to have manual control of your iPhone. When you do a normal video with your iPhone or your Android phone, it tries to do everything automatically for you. So it tries to make sure that it's as lit as well as it can be. But it does that to the sacrifice of other things. And maybe sometimes you want to actually intentionally have a dark part of the screen, or you want to have a bit of the screen which is overexposed and things. But generally speaking, the phone won't let you do that. But with this app, it will allow you to have that manual control over the electronics in your phone. So what I was going to try and do, I've actually got this on my phone, and I'll try and do a little bit of a demo, if I may. So just bear with me, because it might all suddenly get a bit rocky while I move the camera. I'm just going to bring up the app on my phone. Right. How much cord have I got? Okay, so can you? I'm going to turn the light off because I think that's going to burn out. Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the first thing I would say is you can see the level indicators down the side here. Yeah. So that's the first thing that you'll notice, that you can actually see how loud the sound input is going into it. And if it's going into the red zone consistently, that means it's too loud. But what you can do is you can actually adjust that using this slider at the bottom here. So I can actually turn down the sensitivity of the microphone. You can see now the audio signal on it is much more in the middle. Ideally, that's probably a bit too low, and you wouldn't need to have it around about there. So it's just going below the red level. That's the interface. Then let me just talk you through it. Apologies, it's not going to work as a live demo. So with this interface, what that allows you to do is that you can control where the focus of the camera goes, and also the amount of light that it accepts at that point, and you can lock them off there. So if you see the square in the middle, that's the point of focus, and you can drag that around and point it at a certain point. So what I was trying to demonstrate with the box of licorice is that normally speaking, when you're focusing on something, the camera tries to make everything in focus, but obviously there are certain things in focus. If the licorice box was very close, but the thing I wanted to focus on was in the distance, depending on where the majority of the focus point was, it would either mean that the licorice would be out of focus, or the thing in the distance would be out of focus. What this allows you to do is choose. So you can actually put the point on the screen and actually say, I want the licorice to be in focus and the background to be out of focus. And you'll see this on quite a few TV and film productions where suddenly it will start being out of focus and then come into focus. And you can control all of that using this interface. The other things you can do is actually change the color temperature of the shot that's happening. So quite often you will find in video editors and photograph editors, you can, if you've taken a photograph under neon light, for argument's sake, you will tend to find that the pictures you've taken will have a greenish tinge to them. And that's because of the nature of the light that's been emitted from those neon lights. But you can compensate for that by changing the color temperature in the camera. All those things you can do from within the app. What I was trying to say, for a small amount of money, I think you'll give yourself an awful lot more control of what you want to be able to do if you're going to be trying to video going forwards. And this sort of control is typically only available on either SLR cameras or on the old traditional video cameras that allowed you to change things like white balance and backlight. Do you all know what I mean by white balance? Have you ever heard of that term before?
Not
No?
really.
Okay. So if you can imagine, no, it's not. If you can imagine that this top of this bottle is white, okay, but you can also see that the wall behind me is also white, although clearly they're different colors. Yeah. And that's because of the white balance. What it is doing is the lamp above me is putting a yellow tinge onto the rest of the room, whereas the lamp that's on my video camera is actually closer and therefore is giving it a true white. With this app, what I could do is point on the bottle here within the app and say, this is the white balance. What it would then do is compensate the whole picture and change the color temperature to try and say, this is what true white looks like within the rest of the picture. So, and this is where if you take video or photo, well, video mainly, if you take videos from multiple cameras about the same thing, you'll find that most cameras will be set at different color temperatures. And this is where they call color grading comes in. So I could have a video camera and a smartphone video exactly the same thing side by side. One might be slightly yellower than the other, or one might be slightly bluer than the other. But what white balance allows you to do is to correct that so they both look the same. So when you're changing from shots from one device to the other, they look like they've come from the same source. And this is what they call color grading, which allows you to actually apply that color temperature map across all of the footage you've got. And some of the apps I'll show you in a short while will allow you to do that, will allow you to color grade as you go along.
The box in the middle of the screen, can you just drag that around?
Yes, you can. Yeah, in fact, actually, that's probably an old picture. If I can show it to you. So if I was to show you my one, you see it's slightly different. You see it's a circle and then there's a square. Can you see those? Yeah. Well, the circle is the focal point and the square is the light balance. And you can just drag those around. So if I take the circle, I can actually move that around the screen and say I want the focal point to be those mugs that are in the background. And it will try and focus on those and I should go blurred. Okay. And the square is where you decide what the level of light is that's going to come into the camera to see how bright the image is you want. The other thing that's probably worth talking about from a lighting perspective, do you know what I mean by the phrase backlight?
Roughly.
Okay. So backlight is when you have a very bright light source behind the subject matter you're trying to take a picture of. So for argument's sake, if somebody stood in front of a window on a clear day, quite often what you will find is that they will be dark because the camera tries to compensate for the light and takes the majority of the reading from the window behind. So they look dark, or they're in outline or in silhouette, and you've got a bright white light behind them, or rather the natural light's natural behind them. So what some cameras will do allow you to do what they call backlight, and all that really is doing is changing the exposure and actually overcompensating the light, so it gets very bright behind you, but then your subject matter is in proper light, as it were. But again, that might be an effect you actually want. If you look at some of the I know some of the sort of detective movies and that, they often play with that quite a lot, where the person is in shadow because they on purpose put a bright light behind them to create that shadow and create that mood. Any questions before I move on?
Yeah, on the focusing, how
Yeah.
you can adjust your focus. Can you actually do like that effect where they pull focus in a shot?
I haven't tried it. If you're recording, I would imagine you can, because you can drag your finger from one place to another. Filmic is the main app. There are other two apps that come along with it, which are bought separately. One of which is called Filmic Remote. And what this allows you to do is use another smart device to control your camera device. So, because one of the dangers is that every time you stab the screen with your finger, you're going to shake the camera and move it. Whereas, if I can say, I could make my iPhone my camera, and I can use my iPad connected to my iPhone as the remote control. So all those things you talked about in terms of pull focus, you could do remotely without touching the device.
Yeah.
And if you see down the right-hand side, there is like a green line and a bar down the middle, across the middle, horizontal bar, and that's basically a zoom as well. So that allows you to zoom in and out on the camera without having to click the buttons on the top like on a smartphone. Again, if you've got the remote control, that makes it a lot smoother because you're not, again, moving the screen when you're trying to make an adjustment.
Okay.
Cool.
And you can also see at the bottom of that image, there's what they call a histogram. And that histogram is basically showing you what the balance of light is. I have to say, I'm not an expert on histograms. If anybody else is, please shout now. But that basically changes, shows you pictorially how much light and in what values you're getting coming into the lens.
So here, Paul, it's sort of showing it's quite. I mean, if I've got the right bar, it's a lot of blue in that. Am I right?
In the top corner, yes, that's right. And depending on where that peak is in the histogram, if it's to the right, it gives you a whole different effect than if that blue is to the left. So it's a bit like changing hue and saturation, I think, if you're in a picture editing software.
Okay.
Okay. Hopefully the next demos will be a bit bit more improved. But I was going to try and show you my. I wonder. Maybe if I sign into Zoom on my Mac, I can show you that better as well. Let me just bring that up as well. Right, I'll get to that in a second. Right, okay. Any other questions before we move on? So that's obviously to get the actual stuff in the can in the first place. We haven't even talked about the editing yet. No, if there's no other questions, then I'll.
Well, actually, there was one, Paul. I didn't pipe up earlier. With Bluetooth microphones, do you ever risk losing sync with the video? Does the sound ever lose sync with the video?
I don't believe so, because basically it's taking the audio in real time. But of course, that's something you can actually adjust afterwards.
Okay.
Because when you're in the video editor, you can separate the audio and the video and actually drag it back into sync. So it's not the end of the world anyway. The worst scenario is where you have a variable sync issue, because then obviously that's very difficult to do. But no, so to be fair, I've never actually used a Bluetooth mic apart from when we did Taming of the Shrew, and you had the earpiece in with the Bluetooth microphone in the phone going to the earpiece and things. But obviously that's slightly different because it wasn't on film in that context, as it were.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
The Bluetooth mics look like personal rather than
generally, yes. There aren't many sort of what you might call professional mics, as it were. They're more clip-on ones. You can just do that goes on there. So like you see, you got I forgot what they call them now, the clip-on mics, but effectively they tend to go to a radio pack, which then goes to a receiver, which you then plug into a soundboard or directly into your camera. What the Bluetooth tries to do is do it all in one. It's got the microphone with the transmitter in it, and your phone is already designed to pick up a receiver in that respect. So
which works well if it's just one person, but if you were trying to do
you're quite right. If you're doing more than one person, unless the people look close together, then it's probably not going to be a useful tool in that respect. That's where you want to have a proper microphone on a boom or on a microphone on a tripod just out a shot below or something along those lines. Here we go. Right. Okay. Oh, okay. Did two together then. Right. Right, we've already talked about this a bit already. Is focus and depth of field. So when you focus on something, there's a certain distance from your camera to the object you want to take a photograph on. So in this diagram I put up here, you'll see that the camera is on the left and you've got a cat in the center. What you'll see is that the focal distance between that and the diagram below is exactly the same, but the experience is that anything in the foreground up to the cat's blurred and everything after the cat is also blurred. And that's because that's where you would have a wide depth of field. In other words, do you remember the old pinhole cameras?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the whole point of a pinhole cameras is if you had a very sharp pin, it let less light in, but you had a much sharper picture. If you made the hole bigger, you had more light, so the image was brighter, but it became blurred because it wasn't as sharp. And that's how an aperture works on a camera. The bigger the aperture, the more light is let in, but the less focus you can have because of it. So if you have a very small aperture, less light gets in, but you can actually focus very narrowly on something. So in the image below, that's got a much wider aperture, which means that everything is in focus. It's letting more light in, but if you were to zoom in on the cat, it wouldn't be as pin sharp as it would be as if you had a small aperture on the camera. So I just wanted to explain that. And when you were saying about pulling focus, that's really almost playing with that. It's saying the focus is here, and electronically you're changing the aperture from being that point there to being somewhere else, and actually drawing the person in or pushing the person out, depending on which way around you were doing it.
In a way, it sort of creates like an I mean, I loosely use the term optical illusion just because of the, as you say, because there's less light coming in.
Yeah.
Therefore,
But it's also about informing the audience of where you want them to look. You know, that's part of that artistic thing is saying, well, I'm starting off here. If you're doing an advert and you had a person in shot and they were going to eat a baked bean sandwich and that, you want them to see the person initially, but then you want to focus on the thing you're trying to sell, which is a baked bean. So you would change the focus to actually be that sharp, and the person would be slightly softer. And if you're watching, I know, however many of you watch Bridgerton at Christmas, then you will see how again they play with focus on that and try and inform the audience of where the director wants you to focus your attention on. Okay, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this, but I just wanted to give you some ideas of some software which you can put on your phone, which will allow you to do editing directly on your phone, so you don't need an additional device. So if you're using an iPad or an iPhone, then these are the software that you can easily get, and all of these are free. Okay, I think the VLO one you can pay to unlock some certain features, but to all intents and purposes, they're all free up to a certain level, and you can very quickly and easily edit a video together. And if you've got an Android phone, it's almost exactly the same, apart from one app, really. KineMaster is an app which is available on the Android phones, which isn't available on iOS. And KineMaster basically is similar in style. All of these use the same principles, which I'll go through. If I sign in on my Mac and hopefully you rejoin on there, I can show you the principles of that video editing going forwards.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I used video editing on my iMovie.
Yeah, on a Mac, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, what's the question? Okay, and to go over those, if you've got a Windows device, these ones are all free again. I would, if you're really serious about doing what you want to do, I would recommend DaVinci Resolve. It gives you almost professional quality video editing, and it's absolutely free. What I would say is you need to have a reasonably powered computer. because whenever you're editing videos, it takes an awful lot of processing time and also potentially hard disk space as well. All of those are free and they're all available on a Windows device. And if you're on a Mac, you mentioned iMovie, again, that's on there.
Oh yeah, I already got that.
Alternative, but you'll see DaVinci Resolve is also on there. And all three of those are free on a Mac device. And I would put DaVinci Resolve almost as good as Adobe Premiere, which is, you know, normally you'd pay £300, £400 for that type of software. And or you just go to search for DaVinci Resolve on the web and you download it. I think it comes, Blacklight Media, I think was the name of the company that make DaVinci Resolve. And again, if I can get zoomed to what I've got DaVinci Resolve on my Mac here, and I can show you iMovie as well. So if I can get signed in on my Zoom on my Mac, then I'll show you that as well. Right, so this is actually a screenshot of DaVinci Resolve. But they all have the same sort of attributes. And I thought, rather than keep showing you different bits of software, I just point out the typical things you normally find in a video editor, certainly on a desktop. The first area is here, the media. So this is all the video that I've imported into the project. Okay, so these are video clips from my Safari and things. And I've imported them into the video and they are going to be used at some point in the, excuse me, have a quick drink. And they are going to be used at some point within the video telling. Then you have the playing area. So if I was to hit play, this was a live screen. Then if I hit play here, then this would play wherever the indicator line is on here. The cue line is on the video. So if I was to scroll that backwards, this image would play backwards as I was moving the video backwards. The other area which is key is this area here. And this is where you go into the edit. And what you have is what they call a timeline. So what I actually have on this screen is two video sources. I've got this video source here, and I've got this video source here. So I've actually got two videos that I'm going to play around with. Now, if I wanted them to run on one after another, then I could have just dropped this video in on the end here, and it would literally got to the end of that first video and then scrolled across onto the other one. By putting it on top, whichever video screen is on top becomes an overlay. It goes over the top of the one below it. So this is where you can cut in and out of two videos. So you can have, if you videoed a stage play with two cameras, both started or synchronized at the same time, one's a close up and one's a long shot, you can have one on top of the other, and then you as a director can say, at this point in the video, I want the close up to be shown, and at this point in the video, I want the long shot to be shown. And you can play around with that, and you can drag these backwards and forwards. And the video lines typically show two elements to each video. You have the picture element and you have the sound element. So this is the audio that goes along with the video. And one of the things that Steve asked me a short while ago is about the synchronization. If the sound gets out of sync with the image, what you can do is you can actually separate these two and actually independently drag the sound file left or right until it resyncs up with the image. And I've actually had that on a few occasions where I've had to try and inch it, well, millimeter by millimeter, one way or the other, to try and get two video sources to be the same. If I can recommend anything to you, if you've got two video cameras, start them more or less as you can at the same time, but make a big noise, make a clap or a sound, because that will be your synchronization point that you can then match up on the sound file, say, right, these are now aligned and I won't have a lip sync issue. One of the other things you'll find with the camera is they've got different quality microphones, a bit like you have different quality images. So one of the things that can be very jarring is you jump from one camera to the other, and not only does the image get closer or farther away, if you've got that scenario I mentioned earlier on, but the sound changes as well. All of a sudden, the sound has got a different quality altogether. So what I tend to do is use the one soundtrack, which is the best one, all the way through. and I meet the soundtrack of the other track. So when I'm jumping forward and backwards, you've got that continuation of soundtrack all the way through, and you have that consistency. Obviously, if you're changing scenes, you have the opportunity of moving things around, but the ear is almost as a sensitive organ as the eye, and it can be quite jarring if, you know, if I can say one camera is a lot louder than the other one, doesn't even necessarily have to be a different tone. It can just be that it's actually, the volume is completely different, and it can be, you know, like a seesaw, sound up, sound down, sound up, sound down. And again, I've made those mistakes in the past as well. So, and then the other things you can do when you get a bit further on is you can go into the fusion area if this was DaVinci, or transitions if it's sometimes known as in some of the other ones. And this is where you choose how you move from one scene to the other. It's a bit like PowerPoint, where you can choose a transition, like you can do a crossfade. So it goes from one image to another image, and use a crossfade to actually blend the two together. But a bit like PowerPoint, you can overuse them. So if you are going to use transitions, try and keep to a couple of them, unless you're going for a specific effect. So for argument's sake, if you're doing a pantomime and you want the person was going for a dream, and then you say you want the screen to go wibbly wobbly, you know, to give the impression that you know, they've gone into another scene or whatever, that's fine, that's a special. But I would normally only do a cross dissolve, and I would tend to do a cross dissolve quite quickly. So try and avoid doing very long, slow cross dissolves between them, because again, unless it's something you're trying to capture, that can be quite disconcerting, because you're seeing like ghosts. So for argument's sake, if you're going from a landscape scene and then you go into another scene where there's a person in the image, and that if you're doing a low crossfade, then you get this ghost of a person slowly coming into focus as they do it. And unless that's what you're trying to get for, what you really want to do is a cross dissolve. So basically it looks like an in and out. So it's like a nice smooth change between the two. And you can change in this how quickly you do that cross dissolve. And I generally use about like a 2-second dissolve between the two, and I wouldn't try and do any more than that. Or you can do what they call jump cuts, which is basically you don't do any dissolves or transitions, and you go from one to the other. And that's typically what they use in things like horror stories and things, where they want to scare the audience. Like say somebody jumps out from the side things, you actually change the camera angle at that point, and so it scares the audience as much as the person in the shot, because you're actually jolting them awake, unlike Michael's falling asleep. So
it's been a long day, Geezer, long day.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Long day.
Anyway, so I'll show you that interface in real world, as it were, but I just wanted to show you what a full-blown video editing looks like. And where it says color at the bottom there, that's where you can do that color grading I mentioned, where you can take those mixture of clips and try and balance them together. And where it says Fairlight on the bottom, that's basically it's Sound Studio. So that allows you to take all the various sounds and be able to blend them and enhance them, like put echoes on them. So if I can take, if you wanted to do a dungeon scene and you wanted to put a delayed echo on there, or give it the sound of a big expansive room, or indeed what they call a wet room. So it's, you know, it all sounds very claggy, or it can be a very dry sound, in which case it's a very close sound. And deliver on there basically means basically package it all up and make the final version. So the other thing I haven't mentioned, I think this is almost the last slide, so hang in there, is music. Music is one of those powerful tools that if you get the right music underneath, it can convey that emotion, that thing you are looking for from a piece of footage. So for argument's sake, you could take an underwater scene, and you could go from a big epic sound, or you could do a bit more of a threatening, like Jaws sound effect, and they would have different effects on you as a member of the audience. So if you don't know where to start looking, I would recommend a website called Audio Network. You can play them, and in fact, actually, if I try and do this, will it work? It does. Okay, I'm going to take you into audionetwork.com and hopefully to this link. carry on. Hey, can you see that web page?
Yeah.
Okay, it's being a bit slow. There we are. So all I did was I took the word adventure in there, and these are all bits of music which are available. And although these are paid for, I mean, we were talking small amounts of money. For an amateur usage, it's £1 to use the music. You know, so it's very good to get what it wants. And obviously, if you're doing it for TV production, then there's like a commercial fee and things. But if it's just for just personal use, then and all you need to do is just hit the play button here, and it will hopefully start playing. But the beauty of this is, if I was actually to go into the link here rather than hit play, he's actually got multiple versions of that same piece of music. So as you can see, he's actually got nearly 10 different versions. So say I was coming to the end of my piece and I wanted to finish it off, and I just didn't want to do a fade out. They have what they call stings, and stings are very short bits of the same type of theme, which you can use either as an intro or a stab in the thing. So if I hit this 5-second sting, you see over here it tells you that it's 5 seconds long. If I hit that, and you see how you could play the longer piece of music, and when you got to that crucial bit, you could overlay that sting to finish it off, and you finished it off nice and strong. And you see that there's like a 5-second sting, there's an 8-second sting. And this is the beauty of this website. It gives you all these different variants, all these different variables. And all you need to do is just type in what you're looking for. So if I was to type in, I say, type in threatening, and I'll just go with the first one, threatening behavior. And it's just more, rather than music, it's more of an atmospheric. And that just builds an atmosphere. So you could have a dark shot, and you want to get the audience worried about what it is that they're going to see, or and as I say, there's lots of different variations. If you want to build up some tension. And if I was here, if I could say add to cart, for argument's sake, just so you can see the prices and things, and you say what sort of license am I looking for? So if I just want to be, actually it's gone up a bit, £6. But if I want to, if you can just do creative, so £7, you can put it onto YouTube and say you bought the license and you're completely covered. Obviously, I mean, some people just use the music or whatever, but I would recommend if you're going to put it into the public realm, then you ought to pay the license. But I would suggest that this is a really good site if you're just trying to find something that's going to meet the mood, because you can type in emotions, you can type in themes. I know if I type in, I don't know, jolly. So you imagine somebody walking down the street. Uploading video. So once you've done all your glorious video, then where can you put it? Well, the typical ones are YouTube, Vimeo. They're two obviously well-known ones. There are hundreds out there, but it depends on the audience you're trying to get to. And obviously when you put those videos up there, and you need to think about what they call metadata. Metadata are descriptive words you put along the file, which the various search engines across the internet use to try and find things. So for argument's sake, if I had done a piece about Romeo and Juliet, if I actually put the words Romeo and Juliet in the metadata, then when somebody was searching for Romeo and Juliet on YouTube, it would be considered as what are the things that would come up in the search results. Yeah, so think about search terms and things that you want to put in there, which will encourage people to find you.
Yeah.
And right, and I think at that point, I think I'm just going to jump to a couple of other demos. There are some in the presentation. What I have also got here is typical things that people get wrong. The first thing is when you're filming something, it's getting that balance between making sure you've got enough, but don't film too much either. And the reason for that is that if you film too much, you've got to spend all that time editing it down. But if you don't film enough, then you've made a problem for yourself because you've got to try and patch that hole with something else, which again, I've fallen down that trap in the past. So I always have a plan, go back to that storyboard. Have I actually got all the shots that I was looking for? And always think about how you're going to process that information. When you're bringing all that information into a film editor, it's always best to organize yourself at the beginning. So create folders so you know where to look for stuff. Because it's very easy, certainly when I've done a video of a play and you've got multiple versions of evenings that you want to draw bits from, say you videoed the play on 3 different nights and you want to be able to pick and choose which bits, put one in a different folder each so you know where to go and look for them. Because if you just have a screen full of about 20 or 30 thumbnails, you're going to look to yourself and say, well, is that Thursday night or is that Wednesday night? And unless the other thing I tend to do is also name the files the day of the performance or something, so it gives you a bit more of a clue. But also with music, with photographs, anything else you're going to put into it, put them into some sort of structure so that you can easily find it. The other thing that a recommendation somebody said to me is have a play and learn some of the shortcuts. So what I mean by shortcuts is if you do like a Control P on a keyboard, I'm not sure, I don't know if this is even true, but that might be play. So rather than grabbing for your mouse and you want to play it, then your hand's already on key, you can do Control P and it will play, or Control V, shape that way or shape that way is to fast forward one way or the other. So when you all of these video types of software do have keyboard shortcuts, and it might be worth learning a few of the choice ones because you'll find that it's going to save you an awful lot of time when you're editing. And again, going back to the music, we said about putting underlay music, give it a theme and give it a feel. Well, of course, the other key thing is think about what it is you're trying to get over, because if you've got dialogue in there, how many of us have watched things on the BBC where you can't understand the bloody word they're saying because they put the background music too loud? It's either that or I'm getting too old. But anyway, so think about the balance, think about the mood, think about what it, yes. Pardon, what was that? Yes, over editing. So another thing that's quite common is think about where there's a natural edit point for the story you're trying to do. If you've got multi-camera video of something and you're trying to tell the story, think about the story you're trying to say and the reactions you're trying to get. The danger is you do too many cuts. So every time somebody talks, you cut to them. Well, actually think about it. Is that natural, or actually is it sometimes better to stay on the person that's been spoken to and see their reaction to what's been said? So think about the narrative and the body language you're trying to capture. So don't over edit it and don't overcut it. And again, I've mentioned about too many transitions. And I can't stress this other one enough, because video software being what it uses an awful lot of resources of your PC, and it is very common for it to crash. And I have sworn on many occasions, a lot of the software will do an auto backup. So every now and again, it will do a save. And that does save your bacon a lot of the time. And you only lose, say, 10 or 15 minutes, whatever. But I would still every now and again do a full backup just to be absolutely sure. And even sometimes get to a point where you say, well, I want to try do something different. Maybe I'm fairly happy with that, but I want to try it differently. rather than ruining what you did, do a file save as and give it a new name and have a play around with a whole different version of what you've got, just in case it goes horribly wrong. Because undo only goes back so far, and then you have a repair job on your hands.
Done.
Thank you. So hopefully you can see my mouse moving now.
Yeah.
Etc.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Adobe Premiere Elements. This costs about 50 quid, and you'll see that actually it looks almost identical to that DaVinci Resolve I showed you earlier on. Yeah.
Yep.
You've got a preview window up here. You have the multiple soundtracks here, and you've got the various controls and play buttons here, and the things like fades and things. I'll move this to one side. All the things that were on this side, on the other bit of software, on this side, on this one. You know, so like transitions and edits and things. And you'll see that for each video line, you see video 4, video 3, video 2. So actually, if I scroll down, you see I've actually got 4 videos stacked on top of each other, plus an audio track. And this yellow line here, if I was to put the insertion point here, actually means that yellow line means don't use this camera, use whatever is turned on above. I need to expand that here. So there's another video here. So if I was to hit play now, it is going to be using this camera here. So just doing the thumbnails. Okay. So, but actually, what happens actually, I don't like it at that angle because they're back to us. All I need to do is to drag down this line, he says. I'm not sure it's going to respond. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a bit. Wait a second. I can drag down this line, which basically says turn that camera off. And you see I'm now gone to a front shot because it's picking up the video from this one here. And I can carry on playing.
Thou hast told me of another father.
Oh damn, she's walked off camera. Actually, now I need to get to the other camera, which is this one here, I think, from memory. This one here. And actually, if I put that one back up, oh no, wrong one, sorry. This is why I should have named them. So I think it's this one here. There we are. So I can now see her walk off stage. Yeah?
I am more proud to be Sir Roland's son, his youngest son.
Oops, right, okay, so now he's come back to the middle of the shot. So actually now, what I'm doing here, I'm just turning the video up and down. What I'm not doing is actually fixing it. So if I was actually wanted to cut shots, I have to do what they call razor blading it. So basically what I want to do is actually use a pair of scissors and actually cut the video at this stage here and say from this point onwards, I want these settings to take place. And then when you get to the next edit point, you use the scissors again. The next time you make a chop and change, then the changes you make won't affect what you've done before. But the way I was just showing you, we're just dragging this line up and down, it's removing that whole camera in and out for the whole length of it. So that's what this cutting line is here. Any questions on that before I go on to some of the other bits?
Really, just I suppose it's a question of just really playing around with things, isn't it? Initially.
That's very much the case. So if I did actually also load up thought. So this is iMovie, this is on a Mac, so you'll only have this if you've got a Mac and not a Windows PC, but the sort of principles are the same. Okay, and this is, you saw that screenshot I said earlier on. Well, this is where it came in. So you see that actually that actually wanted a face of a person. So this is just random slides I pulled in earlier on. So rather than people, I'm going to do things. So actually, I'm going to bring this warthog in and I'm going to drag it into here. But then I'm going to say, well, pretend that this line is after the warthog. And then I'm going to do maybe the warthog from there. And then what I can do is actually play those in order. So if I bring the cursor back to here. Okay. But because this is the trailer, you see that each of these are only a second long. So, and that's how you can see that it's trying to educate you and say how long, depending on the mood of the trailer you're trying to create, is you need to be snappy and choose your shots wisely, and you can't change the length of these. So, but this is very much a framework saying here's something you can just throw stuff in and have a play with. So that's what iMovie does, and each of those other ones I showed you are fairly similar in terms of what they do and the layouts they do. And let me just bring up YouTube and I'll show you what we did for a bunch of amateurs if you haven't seen it. And if you're so minded, this is where you can watch the whole of Taming the Shrew. Or even the trailer I did. Right, okay, so this is using that software I just showed you. This is what I did with the shots. Where's the play? There. Hang on, can I make it full screen? There we are. Can you still see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All that was using that iMovie. So I wouldn't know. So that's the art of the possible, but you can see the sorts of things you do. You saw how quickly all those shots kept on going over the top of each other and things. There's other software you can look at on, I think it's on both platforms. If you look for a program called Quik, Q-U-I-K, if you want to create a video from your photographs with some underlying music and so on, then effectively that's what, is this one? No, it's 26 minutes one. So let me find one. So if I was to, yeah, okay. This is something that was created using Quik. So this is just photographs and videos thrown in together, and the application called Quik basically does all this for you. does a number of things. Firstly, it'll tell you the amount of time it's got available for that piece of music that you're playing. But the other thing is, it actually does the transitions in time with the music, and that's another important aspect you need to think about when you're doing edits and cuts. Think about the changes and see if you can make them fluid with the music, often with the beat, so that it doesn't look like things are changing for the sake of changing. They're actually changing because they naturally flow. Just trying to think if I can find another one, a different type of example. Oh, here we are. Witness of the prosecution. Again, this was just done with audio that we did in rehearsal and some photographs, and then the rest of it was then just pasted together again to build up the drama with the underlying music as well. I recognise that person.
Renaud, you are charged on indictment that on the 14th of October you murdered Emily French. How do you plead?
Not guilty. It's not true, I tell you. It's not true. You killed Emily French. I didn't do it. I didn't kill her. It's a nightmare. An awful, evil dream.
Wouldn't necessarily be a man who had struck the blow. A woman could have done it.
Certainly. From the position of the wound, no great strength would have been needed.
She was there on the floor, poor body, her head beaten in. I was at home all evening.
This is a capital charge.
Forgive me, Wilfred, but aren't you letting this case become a personal duel?
A young man's life depends on the outcome of that duel.
Miss French was a very wealthy woman. I put it to you that you were desperate for money.
You make it sound all twisted.
Silence in court. Do you find the prisoner guilty or not guilty?
And again, that was trying to change, obviously trying to tell the story, but without necessarily being full video, but certainly being with the images, but also you've got the underlying music and trying to get them to move in time with that sort of underlying feeling that you're trying to generate from that. Now, something else, just as an example. If you want to see something I did, would anybody like to see dancing cows?
Yeah.
Go on then.
I did this, would you believe, although it says uploaded in 2004, I actually did this in 2002. So this is a long time ago now. The picture quality is probably going to be rubbish. I think it's all work, by the way.
Cows, we're remarkable cows, and wherever we go, it's a fabulous show. Oh, you know we are cows, that's right, we're cows, such remarkable cows. We can sing very low, we can dance in a row, we are lovely and slow. Yes, you know we are cows. If you thought that all we could do was go moo, then you ought to come and see what we do, for we are cows. We're remarkable cows, such remarkable cows, remarkable cows, and where we go, it's a fabulous show. Oh, you know we are.
We're going to have to stop that there.
Very good, yes.
Good, well done.
I can get far enough away. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go into this VLLO, which is, again, I've never used this before, ever. So just to show you how easy these things are. So it says, do you want to create a video? Yeah, I want to create a video. Okay. Come on, he says. Okay. Oh, there we are. Okay, so it's found all my videos that are on, he says, that's not a video, is it? Thank you. So these are all videos that are on my iPad. So I'm just going to choose a few videos. And you see, as I'm doing it down here, it's actually loading them up below. And I'm just going to throw a couple in. And so basically, it's created that timeline we talked about. But rather than being stacked as it was before, it's actually putting them after each other. I'm just going to say, excuse me, I finished adding. So I'm just going to go to here. Now, hang on, if I'm trying to avoid the light, that might help, wouldn't it? Oh, hang on, I've got to turn my light off here. There we are. Is that better? Yeah. Okay, so what you can do, of course, is you can, no, now the light's showing. Oh, for goodness sake.
It's fine.
There we are. Yeah, it's just fine. We can see.
Sorry, let me try and block it with my head. How's that? There we are. So this is where you can change the shape of the image you want to create. So that's the other thing you need to think about is what's the platform it's going to go on. So Instagram generally tends to be square, or you might want it to be portrait mode, or you might want it to be filmic, etc. And so you can choose all of these from these settings here. So 16:9 is the standard size for a film. But I could, 1:1 is a square, and then you can all these different sizes you want to do. And you can say with that, then the content you either fit to the screen or fill it. So I stretch it. So if I can say, if it was a portrait video you'd taken, it would stretch the video to be the full width of what you were going to do. But I'm going to leave it on fit. And now it's just loaded them up. And you see now here, it's got the timeline of what's playing with the sound file. And if I was to hit play, and as you see, when this red line gets to the end of that particular shot, it will then jump to the next shot. But if I stop that and actually say, well, actually, this shot is starting with nothing there. So actually, I'm going to grab hold of this end piece here, and actually, I'm going to just edit the length of it and move it along a bit. This is very difficult to do holding with one hand and doing it with the other. Well, believe me, you can do that anyway. You can change that. The other thing I wanted to show you on here, and it's got loads of things that you can do. You can do chroma key. Chroma key is what we call green screen. So if, for argument's sake, you filmed yourself in front of a green screen, you could use chroma key to take out the background and drop in other things behind it. But you can also change backgrounds and layouts. If I say done, I'm not going to do anything to that. Where's the and then this is the crossfade. So I can actually say I want this to fade up. So it'll actually fade up the rather than jumping in, it will crossfade into it. Oh, sorry, this is really awkward trying to hold this funny angle and what I wanted to try and find, where's the audio gone? Oh, I can't see it. Here we are. So see, this is the video, the audio line underneath, and you can change it and move it around. I'm going to jump out of this one because this isn't going as well as I was hoped. Where's the other one I installed? Sure, I put them all three on here. There we are, in shot. There we are. Yeah. So in shot was the other one for it, and then similar approach. I'm going to choose the same shots again. Children singing as well. But hit the tick box to say I'm finished, done with that, and then it'll do exactly the same as it did before. But you will see it's put it into a square, and you again I can't remember which one this is on. I think it's on canvas. You can go in here and change the shape and look out. But if I play that, come on, I think it's downloading it from the internet. And it was all going so well. Right, finally. Right, so there we are. See, so I can actually change this back to 16 by 9 rather than that square that it decided it wanted to do. So now if I hit play, so there's the video with the fish and the underwater, but actually that's not necessarily very interesting with all the bubbles playing and so on. So what I could do is I can actually go to music and I can add a track of music, and I'm just going to randomly choose. These are all stuff that are, okay. I've never seen it. No, I'm not going to put a fart on it. Let's put an instrument. Let's put a bassoon here. Okay, that's sounding just like a fart as well, so I'm not sure I want to use that either. Anyway, so
I think we get the principle,
yeah,
Paul.
okay, right. So apologies. It's very difficult to show and tell with holding it, but hopefully, if you install the software on your own devices, you can have a play. So I suppose the last thing I wanted to just do really was give you homework.
Oh, my apologies, everyone, but I better get going. Thanks for showing us around, Paul.
The homework and he's off.
All right, I'll see you later.
Okay,
yeah, take care, Ben.
See ya.
I thought you were joking. Right, okay. So, can you see that okay on my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, homework then is for you to go away and do a little film. Think about either a favourite book, film, or play, or product, and do, well, I said 1.5 minutes, but anywhere between 30 seconds and a minute might be probably better. Think of either doing a trailer for that book, a trailer for that film, a trailer for that play even, or the product, and then just think about, sketch out the storyboard around it, about what sort of shots you would do. So for argument's sake, if you wanted to see one, showing how scarred I was at school, my English teacher made me write an essay on the life and times of a baked bean. And especially when it was living inside a tin. So just think about, take a sprout of broccoli and make a story up about it. And just think about what it is you're trying to put across. Think about that content, think about the editing. Are you going to have all long shots? Are you going to do close-up shots? Are you going to do shaky shots? Because it's, or are you going to do some animation? You can even do sort of what they call in-camera animation, where you make the piece of broccoli go past the camera, sort of thing. You could even, if you're really adventurous, do a bit of morph or a bit of Aardman, if you like. Edit it and then present it back. How does that sound?
Yep.
Yeah, sort of.
I see. See if it's a disaster or not, but
well,
that's the fun of it.
It's all about you getting to know your camera, know the apps. If you're feeling that the apps are a step too far, think about taking a series of photographs about what it is you're trying to put across, and then use one of the apps like Quick that I told you about, QUIK, which basically takes you by the hand. It just says what photographs do you want to load, and then it gives you different styles and themes. So you can say happy, sad, quick, slow, and you can change the music underneath and actually try and tell the story in those photographs. If you're not feeling comfortable about doing lots of video clips and putting them together. And I appreciate not everybody's films are video cameras or mobile phones are necessarily good for doing videos, because it all depends on the amount of storage you've got and so on and so forth. So if you can't do a video, try and do lots of photographs and tell the story with photographs with some underlying music.
So basically, if we can like put things in like music and all that, then
well, so the music comes with it. Certainly if you use the Quick or even the other ones I was showing you, there's lots of free music in the background which you can just hit the button You can add your own music to it, especially if you use either the Apple Store or the Play Store, and you actually subscribe to those. Then obviously you can choose any music you like from those ones. Or if you really want to be adventurous, go to one of those other freeware sites and actually download some of that free music that David was talking about. And if you want to go for the slapstick one, I mean, for argument's sake, let me just have a quick look at it. Let me just see if I've got it on here quick. Okay. So can you see it? That's what it looks like, the logo. It's like a Q with a half blue, half white logo. That's what you're searching for if you go to your app store. And if I go into that, basically it's saying, do you want to create a new video? So I'm just going to create a new video with the plus. It then takes me to my photographs. I can just randomly pick photographs I want to use. Yeah, any you like. And then you just say, I want to add those. And then automatically it starts building for you. But the important thing is you can change so if I wanted it to be like an old comedy, like Charlie Chaplin comedy, there's one called Dandy. And it applies a filter to it as well, gives it a flicker. Yeah, so that just shows you that there are loads of, but you can also mix and match. There are tools across the bottom here, which allow you to say, I like the effect of the Dandy, but I don't like the music. And you can go into the music icon, which is like a note on the bottom here, and actually change it to be completely different. So basically, although it's got the flickery screen of that, it's got completely different music. So you've got full control over everything. And you saw how quickly I did that just by randomly picking pictures. So if you, as I say, if you don't feel comfortable with doing videoing and you want to try and tell the story with a series of photographs, that might be another nice way of doing it. And if anyone wants to help, just give me a shout.
And am I right? We think we got 2 weeks to do it. Is that right?
No, that was my mistake, Ben.
Could be done by tomorrow.
It's March the 1st, not March the 8th. So it's next Monday.
Good.
Alfred Hitchcock, eat your heart out. Yeah.
So if you're anything like me, you'll start about 1:45 on the 7th.
Yeah, so basically the email that I sent out, which said that we were next meeting on the 8th, is incorrect because I had missed out St. David's Day, which is really a sackable offence at my end. But yeah, it should have been for next Monday. So you have a week to turn this round. So don't overthink it. It's just a case of doing something because it's all about a little bit about just getting some experience, finding out what you find easy. There's an awful lot to take in. Thank you very much for Paul for sharing all of that. I appreciate that Zoom has offered some technical difficulties as it usually does, but you know, you've put a lot of time into that, so it's much appreciated. Jane and Michael and Annette send their apologies that they had to leave before you'd quite finished, but we obviously we've videoed this. Any final questions about the homework mission?